The Empowerment Show aims to equip individuals with the necessary tools, knowledge, and confidence to make informed decisions and take control of their lives. It also focuses on ensuring access to essential resources and the opportunities.
All right, well, good evening. As you can see, we're going to have a part two this evening, excuse me, of the Empowerment Show. My name is Kendall Stevenson. I am the host of this show, The Empowerment, and we hope that the information that we bring you it will be helpful and you get something out of it. So this evening, I have a young lady on, and her name is Miss Chambers. Now, before I bring her on, I want you guys to understand, when you talk history, we can go back to the 1800s with this young lady and her family. And we're in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. So just to let you know where this is being broadcast from. So all of you guys that are tuning in and listening, please remember there's a word that we utilize called ashe. This is a word that honors our ancestors. So this young lady, she is not an ancestor, but she is an elder, and she does have a story to tell. So without further ado, let me bring her in. Good evening, young lady. How are you?
Good evening, Kendall.
I was just telling everybody that you're, about the you and your history and your family's history, and that you guys go all the way back to the 1800s.
17.
We're talking Civil War, 1700s, but even better. We're talking traveling through the Civil War. We're sliding all the way up into what do you call it, to Jim Crow and Reconstruction, if you want to say, and we just keep going on and on. So why don't you tell us about yourself?
Well, from Stroudsburg, as I said, 1700s. My ancestors were here, first settlers, as a matter of fact, 1700s. And I'm still learning. And yes, 1800s is important because that's when my great-great-great-grandparents founded the Little Bethel AME Church. So multicultural families had congregated, and finally got a place of worship. And that was 1868, but they'd been here since.
Not to cut you off. I want you to continue on with the story. But when you utilize a person, can you give us their name? Tell us to whom we're speaking about. When you
I'm sorry. My name is Sherry Chambers, and my family has been here for 300 years. I'm from Stroudsburg, graduated from Stroudsburg High School, and I'm 66 years old. That's how long I've been in Stroudsburg. Been out of town a few times, but yes, born and raised in Stroudsburg. And what did you want me to elaborate on?
What was your family's name, your family you were talking about from the 1800s, and you were talking about your families were the first one to go into the church, the founders of the church. What's their name?
The 1700s. In the 1700s, the Poston families came. There were only 74 of them at the time, and they started the first commuting here in the Poconos. They had forms of commuting of it was horse and buggy, and then the train coach, and then the railroad, and then taxi cab, all the way up to the 19th century. But the Poston family, my grandmother is a Poston, and her name was Helen Poston Amherst. The Postons are spread out throughout Stroudsburg. However, the Haynes, Huffs, Postons, Sales, Adams are the natives of our family. The foundation was laid by the Postons, Huff, Haynes families back then. Yes.
All right. Well, you growing up with you had an opportunity to see multiculturals. I mean, we discussed this mulatto thing, which I told you I really don't get much into.
Mm.
But in your case, I'm not even gonna utilize the word, but what I am gonna say is that your family is multicultural because you have different people of different backgrounds that make you up. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Most certainly, the Postons that I spoke of, the settlers were white, according to books, documents, and they integrated in the 1800s. And we have a thing in our culture, when you say multicultural, we have a thing in our culture which is called passing. After integrating with blacks, which we were, African Americans, you have passing, which some people come out at in birth, they don't look black. However, they come out lighter, and that in our culture is called passing. They grow up and they look white, and in society back then, and still it's carried on. They take advantage of that in society. It's advantageous because, of course, you can't get a job when you're black back in the day. And I found out very prestigious people, such as MB Captain Fire Chief MB Poston, led
Hmm.
the parade in 1868. Well, I didn't see him. I don't have a picture of him. But if he was in our family, which which he was, according to the documents and whatnot, there's no way around these families. They anyone can deny it, and as I said, I'm still learning. But yes, that's our family. So there were whites, there were, as you said, biracial or mulattoes, which they named us in the census. They changed the census. Come to find out, I read the census. It changed from black to mulatto, N for Negro, and black, and then M for mulatto, to C for colored. You know, mulatto is, I think, when they couldn't figure you out. So those were the passing people, looking white, but they weren't white. They were black, but they were passing for white. However, they were integrated. Their blood or DNA would have come up African American. That's what that's what that was. And when you say I grew up in multicultural society here, that's not true, because you can check the census, you can check Monroe County's documents, and my family was the only multicultural family here in the 17 and 1800s. We were the only ones here. And then, I mean, very few blacks and came here from the south to the north until the late 1960s. They started migrating. The families in Stroudsburg, I can name them all that came, most of them. But yes, very few that are documented weren't related to us, because there was one family, a multicultural family, that laid the foundation here in Stroudsburg. And very much of the documents uh, are insinuating that Jacob Stroudsburg's founder, was very close to the family. And my great 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 grandfather is laid to rest at the Dansbury Cemetery.
Hmm.
And ironically, Jacob Stroud is buried next to him.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Oh,
The Bethel Church. You were telling me the Little Bethel Church. You were telling me about the founder. Why don't you tell me a little bit more? Who
my
actually is the founder?
my great 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 grandfather, Reverend Samuel Huff, is the founder. His brother Ira Huff, and our cousin John Quago, who served in the Civil War. He served in the Civil War, but Reverend Samuel Huff was a laborer and a man from Monroe County. Most of the Huffs were born in Warren County, New Jersey, which is on the borderline of Stroudsburg and New Jersey, right through the bridge there, Haynesburg. And Reverend Samuel Huff was Native American and Black American. And I have his picture. And through pictures, you can tell ethnicities. His hair and my aunts always told me, and my aunt that gave me the picture, and my great aunts always told me, Papa Huff, yeah, his hair was so long, he had to put a bun up in the back because his hair was so long. And the picture reflects that. And the pictures have survived the 1955 flood. So that's Reverend Samuel Huff. And his brother, Ira Huff, founder, he was instrumental in obtaining the property. There were 3 lots there that were given, and Ira Huff was instrumental in getting those 3 lots. He had 11 acres of land in Smithfield Township.
Mhm.
According to the Monroe County Historical Society, when I was a teenager, I went up to the director, and she gave me a few documents, and I read them. And according to the documents, there was a slave that Jacob Stroud was allegedly protecting. Well, the census shows that that slave's name was Ira Huff, who's on the deed, for Little Bethel AME. Well, he wasn't a slave. He was free. He had 11 acres of land along the Delaware, Shawnee on the Delaware. And how can he have 11 acres of land, a farmer, proprietor of his land, and be a slave?
Hmm.
And why would they document that Jacob Stroud was protecting him? That insinuation tells Black people a lot of things, because a lot of things were camouflaged. And the timeline fits that indeed he may have been Jacob Stroud's son.
What is the family?
He named his son Stroud.
Wow. And then there was also a town named after him, Stroudsburg.
1836. 1836. Yes. And he was a colonel. He was in the war, and Revolutionary War. Jacob Stroud. He hurt himself. He fell, and he hurt his liver and got jaundice and got sick, and that what contributed to his ailments before his death. But yes, 1868, Ira Huff, Reverend Samuel Huff, who had been a laborer and also a carpenter, and all of his brothers and the Haynes, they worked in Stroudsburg. And as I said, when I say lay the foundation, they were they were businessmen also. They were instrumental in a lot of things for the colored people of Stroudsburg. So when they founded the church in 1868, AME conference, they had to give the dues to the AME conference in Philadelphia. And throughout the years, they kept giving the dues. And when in the 1960s, my Aunt Carrie, God bless her, who was the secretary, she was the events coordinator. She, after everybody started dying off, the elders started dying off, God bless Aunt Carrie, she kept the doors open. And she was walking from Route 191 and 447, 191, yep, go down 611, I'm sorry, 191 and 611. She's walking from Foxtown Hill, which if you're from town, it's up 611. It's on the way to Delaware Water Gap. And that's how she was such a dedicated woman, a devout Christian. She baptized most of us. And it's a tell story that the multiculturalism, as you emphasized, we didn't find out until we were teenagers that Aunt Carrie was a white woman. We didn't know. We didn't know. All my cousins said, "Did you know Aunt Carrie?" No, we didn't know she was with the Salvation Army. She was a devout Christian, and as I said, she was a white woman. Come to find out, but getting back to the founders, Reverend Samuel Huff was married to to Jane Ray. Jane Ray's mother was Susan Counterman, and the Countermans are white. So Jane Ray was a biracial woman who married Reverend Samuel Huff, who is the founder of Little Bethel. You see, so there's a lot when you say multiculturalism. Yes, and nobody ever speaks about when they say, "Oh, yeah, it's the black church." Well, it's multicultural church, but they don't know because they don't know the truth, and nobody's asked. So that's why. But I'm here to divulge.
Well, here it is.
Here it
And you
is.
put it out there so that everybody can see. When you say whoop, there it is. All right, whoop, there it is. I got you. I got you. We were talking when we were off the mic, and we were talking about the different people in your family and that how you fought to get a plaque put up. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the plaque, the person who's deserving of the plaque?
In 2004, well, in 1994, first, I solicited Borough Council to name the land across from the park, the church, which was a park, First Ward Park. I solicited Borough Council to name it after my grandmother because her name was on the deed, on the 1950 deed. See? So I fought for 2 years for that. And it was finally approved to name the park Helen Amherst 3rd Street Park, justifiably. And across the street, Little Bethel AME Church, I knew in my heart after years of after the park was named, I wanted to commemorate the colored soldiers that I knew about. And I have to say that thanks for former director Joel Keller and his research, without, I would have not been able to gotten this information. But yes, the United States Federal Army Archives out of Carlisle, Monroe County Historical Society, Northampton County Historical Society, and Genealogical Society, with their information, I solicited, again, submitted a proposal that a Civil War plaque be erected in front of the church. Now, mind you, in 2000, when people came to allegedly help me to preserve the church and restore the church, I had I hired an attorney, and I got the articles of the corporation, got a 501c3. And that attorney, in turn, as I had gotten a 501c3, he got a 501c3. I wanted to restore the church in its natural as a church. And I emphasize the excerpt of the deed. It is to remain a permanent place of worship. See, that's where my heart's at. The 1868 deed states it is to remain a permanent place of worship. So when I wanted to erect the plaque, that verbiage, I put that excerpt in the verbiage when I composed the verbiage for the Civil War plaque. It's on the second line. Almighty God is on the first, or the first. First and second is Almighty God, and the excerpt is there on the second line. I made sure that Almighty God, and ironically, the attorney that I had hired, his organization opposed me for years to erect the plaque, but I successfully had it erected. And that plaque represents Monroe County's United States Colored Troops. Those were the men. There were only 70 black men, they said colored men, in Monroe County. Out of the 70, they all came and surrendered, and they wanted to represent the Union, and they did. only four were drafted, and 25 men served. And I put the 24, because anyway, I don't want to tell that story, but 24 are on the plaque, and 4 were drafted. The one is my well, 98% of them are my ancestors. However, one of them is listed in the Monroe County Courthouse. Only one. He was 18-year-old Amos Huff. He's underneath the cannon on the right in the courthouse square. Why
I
he
think I've
was?
seen that.
Pardon me,
I
sir.
think I've seen that underneath the
Yeah.
in the square, right in the middle of the square.
Mm.
Yeah, I believe I have seen that.
He-
So
he's
that your
a-
family again has not only been here in this area since the late 1700s into the 1800s, but they've also made contributions. They've given their life for this country, if you want to say.
Yes,
You know,
sir. And
for the
when you
Civil
say,
War and during the Civil War and I guess beyond. Do you have any World War II, World War One, or
oh,
that
yeah.
continues on?
Oh yes, all of the men were served. That's the great part. These men were of valor. My uncle Stanley served in World War II, and Ed Poston served in World War. No, Uncle Stanley served in World War One. Ed Poston served in World War II. The 369 Regiment.
Mm-hmm.
And Uncle Stanley came back. He had been exposed to the biological chemical warfare, and he suffered from that. Yes, they all served, but as I said, out of those 70 men, that is a telltale story. These men didn't have to go, and they were farmers and they were laborers. They didn't have to go. They were free men. It was wrong in their history books, or documented, that they thought they were slaves and they were free men, and they laid down their plows. I always like to say they laid down their plows and picked up their rifles to free the enslaved. Absolutely. Yes.
Absolutely.
That's my feeling.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I
And those men,
like that analogy.
yes, sir. So
I do.
those men I
do.
listed.
You
I'm
first.
sorry.
Go ahead. I'm
I
listening.
was going to say, and those men are listed. So I fought to have the civil plaque erected I started in about 2014. And the only opposition that I received was the attorney that I had hired to obtain my 501c3, and he obtained his and started another organization, which now is the proprietor of the Little Bethel Church structure. It's a former church now. Okay, it's not a church anymore, and they obtained it through the IRS as a church. And I'm screaming and proclaiming, where's the church? Where's the church? Because for 20 years, the community fundraised to restore, for the church's restoration, to restore it to its original status. Well, its original status is a church. And now it's a structure. It is spiritually desolate, and it's a structure. They claim to be an online bookstore. And I have issue with that, because that's not honoring, number one, the community that's been fundraising for 20 years, and that was the sole intent. So now it's restored, and they're not honoring the deed. They're not honoring our deed. And furthermore, there's no Monroe County history there, because I know it would behoove them to have the founders of the church in 1868 up on the walls, and the Monroe County history. Well, I know it's not there because it's here in my home in my boxes. Thank you. I got the picture.
So I guess
Hello. I,
As they say, you have the receipts.
I got the receipts. So you want to say it's a church? No, you have to say it's the former church. It was a former church because you're not honoring the deed. It is to remain a permanent place of worship. Now, if you want to go ahead with the IRS and say, "Oh, we're going to restore a church and get your funds," well, you better explain to them why it's not now.
Hmm, hmm.
Okay? You want to have tell me this. Tell me in this small town, if they did fundraising for the Jewish temple uptown, or they did for the white church, white Methodist church for 20 years, do you really think that they said, well, no, we don't want to have the temple anymore after you did 20 years of fundraising. Let's open up an online bookstore. And and it's supposed to be black history. So black history? Well, what black history? We didn't have any black history. I know I didn't have any black history when I was a child. No, and in school, we didn't have any black history. So, what black history are you putting in there? It's not ours. As I
Mm.
said, the community members, not just my family, it's the community family. That's what made Little Bethel. Little Bethel represents the community, and it's not just my family. And as a matter of fact, we just had somebody die a couple of weeks ago, and we laid her to rest. She's a community member. She's not blood, but those people are members. They were baptized at Little Bethel. They
Mm.
represent Little Bethel. We are Little Bethel, you see. But presently, whatever's in that structure does not represent us. Where's the Monroe County history? Anybody can get some books. You want some books? Amazon. That's what's going in. Oh, let's volunteer and contribute some books. I got a lot of books. What you got? Alice in Wonderland. I got that. What you got? I got. Well, you're putting everything in the box. Where's the Monroe County history?
Mm.
It's not
You
there.
know, I don't know much about the Monroe County history because I'm not from Monroe County. But I have dealt with some of the people at the Little Bethel Church, and they come with good intentions. I
Good
think what they're
intention.
trying to do, I think what they're trying to do is to keep the establishment open. Now, it may not be open for religious purposes, but I think they're trying to keep it open for historical purposes.
Historically, it was a church.
Well, this is still a
Hello.
historical building. I mean, whether it's still a landmark, whether it's being utilized or not, it's still considered it to be a landmark, right?
It can be a landmark. However, if the sole intent of the community for 20 years was to restore the church, that was the intent. And if you file with the IRS as a church, as a charitable organization to restore the church, and that's what's on file, then you have to represent exactly what the structure was, and you have to restore it as you say it was a church. Now, it's a former church only because they've chosen not to honor the deed. It'll be a church if they honor the deed. But on paper, we can fill out as a 501c3 charitable organization. Okay, we're gonna renovate the barnyard. It's a historical barnyard, and okay, and then you turn the barnyard into uh what is it called? One of the uh, flea markets. Okay, the barnyard is a historical place that you've renovated. You have to honor the barnyard for what the barnyard is. If it's gonna be a historical barnyard, you cannot turn it into a Friday night dance barnyard. You have to honor exactly what you asked the IRS to help you with financially or its status. One of the two. It can't be both. And I know for a fact that the other organization has has with intent. And in 20 years of community fundraising, it was, oh, help us fundraise for the church. Help us, oh, the Little Black Church. Help us fundraise with the church. 20, okay, you got the funds. Then all of a sudden the structure becomes, oh, well, we're gonna have a library, a black history library. Okay, well, if you want the Black History Library, how about that multicultural history and that Black history aspect, part of the multiculturalism of the real families that were here? The founders, what about the founders? What about the founders' lineage? It goes all the way down. I have all of the lineage from the top to the bottom. Nobody knows the founders of Little Bethel. Nobody knows about the founders. Nobody knows about their children and the lineage all the way down, and or their contributions. As you said, it started from the top. The lineage spread out. What about those families? What contributions did they make? That's exactly the point. What contributions did the lineage of the founders make? And who were these people? They were the people who made the history and made Little Bethel symbolic. However, Little Bethel was a church. So you can't be deceitful. You can't be deceitful. If you fundraise for 20 years to restore the church, when you get the money and you make the structure, you get it renovated and whatnot, okay, listen, I'm all for educational purposes. You want to have a Black History Library and it's educational for children? That's good, because I didn't know any Black history. Trust me when I tell you, they were going to bring in a professor from ESU for me, because the teachers knew I was discouraged about the history I was learning. Nobody looked like me. So they really were going out of the way. They were getting the Black professor from East Stroudsburg College. I was about to say ESU, but it wasn't ESU then. It was East Stroudsburg College. They were going to have him come over, especially specifically just for me, to teach about Black history. I'm all for education. Don't get it wrong. If you want a Black History Library, that's great. But what about Monroe County history? That is the emphasis. And the emphasis should be on why you restored the Little Bethel AME Church. And you filed the papers for this historical structure. And that's all lost. You can't do that. You shouldn't do it. And that's why I'm here.
I got another question for you.
Yes.
We were also talking about the founders of the NAACP for the Monroe County area. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, sir. In 1963, people from the community were meeting at the church, at Little Bethel AME Church. Well, no, we were there for a while, and then it grew so big that they had to go to the YMCA. But they originally had their meetings at Little Bethel. And that was my mother. My mother started the meetings at AME, at her ancestral church of AME. And that was 1963. And that's when the NAACP started. And they got everybody contributed with their dues and whatnot. And I may say that throughout the years, no one ever, well, not that she was looking for it, just like I never put my name on the plaque, because I was naive, I guess, but I was humble enough not to think about it. I didn't know everybody was putting their names on what they contribute, but I found out they do. However, yes, my mother was the founder of the NAACP in 1963, and it was 60 years later that a woman with respect and integrity honored her at the Freedom Gala, NAACP Freedom Gala, and that'd be President Krista Caceres. I call her Queen. And she was the
Mm.
first in 60 years. And that speaks volumes. That speaks volumes. Not just that she was the first to honor, but what happened in those 60 years? Those 60 years of members and whatnot, the same as the members that that organized for Little Bethel. Everybody wants to get in the camera. I'm a member of this, and I'm a member. But they didn't want to honor because it takes the limelight off of the member, you see. They don't want to
Mm.
recognize anybody else. It's all in name only. I'm a member of such and such. I'm a member. That's all you want to scream about. I was too naive to put my name on the plaque. I wouldn't even think about that. But I amended it, and the permanent plaque for my amendment with my name and my ancestors' names all the way down so that it's preserved, that were there and made the contributions are going on permanently. But yes, she was the founder of the NAACP. But it took 60 years for a woman of honor and integrity to respect somebody else instead of just being a member.
And what was her name?
Krista Caceres.
No, your mother's name?
Oh, no, I thought you were talking about the Queen.
Oh, I know
My
Krista.
the Queen who
Please don't make her
represented.
an ancestor yet. I don't think she's
I was
ready to
thinking.
transition like that yet.
I can't. Yeah, I just had her on my mind. Joan Amherst Chambers, my mother. My
Okay.
mother, Joan Amherst, at the time. She was
Okay.
in
Okay.
our homestead. Well, in 1963, we were just moving out of the borough. The borough was where we were. I used to say segregated, but that's where minorities were kept because of their economic status, whether they be Italian, Irish, which I am, have my DNA of Irish and African American, but my cousins are Italian, and yes, that street changed. Third Street and Lomick Street turned into Third Street, but yes, Joan Chambers, but Joan Amherst Chambers in 1963 founded the NAACP. And next door to the church, I must emphasize, the reason that she was around was our homestead was right next door, 117 North 3rd Street. And then the other lot was our parsonage of the church, those lots there. 117. Then I used to skip. I used to have my grits and my bacon Sunday mornings. I knew it was Sunday morning because I got the special breakfast, bacon and
I think
grits.
somebody want to ask you how you doing tonight.
What do you mean?
Can you see up on the screen? They left a comment right where it says comment.
And you know what? I wanted to say when I'm talking about. No, I don't see it. I don't see it. Nope, I don't see it. I might. And let me tell you this,
Well, just for the people, just for the audience. Yeah, we're doing pretty well tonight. Thank you very much.
I don't see them.
What we're doing here this evening, I could see a young lady. What we're doing here this evening is we're kind of giving a little history about Monroe County and kind of how it developed. And this is a young lady, and her family has been here since late 1800s or late 1700s all the way into the 1800s, and made many contributions to Monroe County. So she's actually just giving you a little history lesson. Now, next month is Black History Month, so we can tie this into that. Okay, right on into Black History Month. Now, here we're getting an opportunity to talk about some people that are in history that you don't read about. These are people that you don't hear about. These are people who have made contributions to Monroe County, all of it. Didn't matter whether they were black, white, in between, didn't matter. All of it. So here she's letting everybody know, giving them tribute to our community and the service that has been performed in our community. As a matter of fact, I want to say, okay, she says, thank you for your service to the community. Okay. So the comment that came in for you says, thank you for your community to the service. Okay.
Thanks.
And again, we use terms as ashe so that we make sure we give you your props and your family props. Now, when I first got here, I guess about 25 years ago, I would walk down Main Street, and one of the things that would get to me, as you can see, I was a military person as well, so I served my time. So one of the things that kind of ticked me off, yes, ma'am, you as well. Thank you for yours. So, just for everybody to let them know, she's also served.
Marine Corps.
Yeah.
Marine Corps.
United States Marine Corps. Where they go? Hoorah! Simplify. Okay. But I would walk down Main Street, and I used to get kind of pissed off because I would look at all the banners, left and right, left, right. I walk all the way from way back from the library all the way down, the historical building, and I walk all the way to the end of Main Street, and I look at every banner, and none of the banners look like me. Then I would come back down, and I would go to where the prison and the courthouse is located in that little jailhouse area. And all around there is where you would see the African Americans and Hispanics. That's where all the banners were, right? And it really pissed me off. I made a big complaint about it. And I think somebody heard me because as I walk down Main Street, you can see now women, African Americans, Hispanic. You can see they've broken it up. And I'm glad that they did that because the way it looked now, the way it was then, you walk down Main Street, you would think that there were no African Americans who ever did anything because the only representation was of other people. They kind of pissed me off. We all served, right? We all did our due, right?
Amen.
So, right.
Well, Carl Abel's dad is on A Street, right there on the corner where Dr. Lim, who was one of our only doctors, right there on A Street. Carl Abel's dad is there. And I when I called to get my cousin and whatnot, and I can't get the Civil War soldiers photos because they're non-existent. But Carl Abel's there. But either way, I did say to Ray Fitzpatrick, I think he was the guy at the time, he works with the banner and whatnot. They said that they only had one banner left, and that was down by Kentucky Fried Chicken. And I was like, I don't know, I'll put it there. But anyway, that was the last one. However, I thought that it would have been proper to put the banners of Monroe County veterans, people that were here from Stroudsburg, before just any resident. So you see banners and they're up and it's Mr. Rodriguez. Who's Mr. Rodriguez? Oh, he lives over on such and such in the condo. And where's he from? He just got here five years ago. I think it should have been prioritized. I'm prejudiced, yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, there are a lot of people. Most people are prejudiced. If you want to,
no, but I think so. I think Monroe County veterans should have been there first. Yeah, there should have been priority. And then if you just came here, you're here within the last 25 years. Okay, put your banner up. That's fine. Always honor veterans. However, yes, in Monroe County, yes. I'm sorry. I think there should have been priority. Yes, I do. But I'm glad they got recognition. And speaking of recognition, as you had asked me about the Civil War plaque, I had to fight SLBH, Stroudsburg Little Bethel Historical Association, because I wanted the plaque to go in front of our ancestral church, where some of them might have been a congregant, and where they grew up. This is where our roots were from the 1800s. I thought it only proper to have these men listed because they were in this area. They didn't build the church, but they were in the area, in the region. And I thought it only proper to recognize them in front of the ancestral church where their ancestors laid the foundation, at least for the place of worship, you see. And I had to fight because the borough land, it was the proprietor right now, the SL Stroudsburg Little Bethel Historical Association owns presently the land there, and then it's the borough. So I had to go down and measure and measure. I measured all the plaques and established how many inches, and then I had established that it was borough property, and the borough allowed me to put it, erect the plaque there, even though they had opposed it. Now it's their golden attribute because it's the only factual information on the premise or outside of their premise, but it's factual information. And that's the best I could do. And as I said, the excerpt is right there in everybody's face as I walk in. And that is the church's spiritual covenant. It is to remain a place of worship. If you don't want to honor it, then don't ask why it's stagnant, please.
Okay, well, we're just about at the end of this show, but I'd like to bring you back again so we can continue talking about your family and the contribution that you made to Monroe County.
Don't forget about the three soldiers now. There's only one colored troop that's listed in the Veterans Memorial, and that's my great uncle Amos Huff. But now I just got the approval from the commissioners to list the other three, and so they'll be listed amongst their white soldiers from the Civil War.
Well, you have a history, and you have a history that you can be proud of. And it's good that you actually know your history, because the majority of us, we can only go back but so far in our history, because of the dysfunctional families and not actually sticking together. So we've been kind of spread all over the place, But
and being impoverished. Remember, not only did my mother start the NAACP, she was the groundbreaker and broke the ice for federal housing in 1965.
Mm-hmm.
She did,
and we're gonna have to make that a part two. I don't want you to give too much away. I need to bring you back. I don't want you to give too much away. You know what I wouldn't want you to do? I don't want you to get nervous.
I'm not nervous.
Go ahead and laugh. Go ahead and laugh.
You made me relax.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you sure did. Yes.
Well, just for the people that are watching, she said before the show that when she came on, she would be very nervous. So I made a gentlewoman's bet with her that I told her that after a little while of being on the show with me, she would not be nervous. So this is why we're having this little discussion at the end of the show. But again, it's time for me to end the show, and I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Tuning into the PA Empowerment Network. Now, under the PA Empowerment Network, we also have other shows. So please tune in to Mental Health Mondays. Check out Jeannie Ruiz. She's all about her business. When you want to talk financial literacy, she's the person to call. When you want to talk spiritual, you feel like you need to lift your spirits. We also have a young lady. Her name is Diane Butts. Diane A. Butts.
Oh, yeah.
Divine Daughters. So we have a variety of shows here, and we'd love for you guys to tune in and to give the support to us for our community services. Again, my name is Kendall Stevenson. I am grateful to be on this platform here on the PA Empowerment Network, on the Empowerment Show. So with that, I'm going to say Hotep. For those that don't understand the meaning of the word, Hotep means peace. Just as those we say shalom, but we're going to say Hotep to honor our ancestors. And with that,